I want you to picture a glass-walled corporate meeting room. Inside, it is just absolute chaos.
Oh, I can imagine.
Right. On one side of the table, you've got a young Gen Z worker, and they are passionately throwing their hands up, just arguing a point. And on the other side of the table, arguing right back, is an artificial intelligence robot.
Wow.
Yeah, they are caught in this fierce, intense standoff. Now, we have been told for years that older workers are doomed to be replaced by a room just like this.
Yeah, that's the prevailing narrative, that legacy experience is just dead weight.
Exactly. But what if the only way this company actually survives this whole technological revolution is by having a seasoned 40-something manager step into that room to take control?
It completely flips the narrative we're so used to hearing. I mean, the anxiety right now is that if you aren't a digital native, your career basically has an expiration date and it is rapidly approaching.
Allegedly. People are terrified.
But when you look closely at the actual mechanics of how enterprise AI functions, you realize that discarding experience is just a recipe for total organizational collapse.
Okay, let's unpack this, because today's deep dive is fundamentally about dismantling that exact myth, the myth of the obsolete older worker.
Right.
We're pulling insights from a really fascinating slide deck by THS Tuan Anh, and it focuses heavily on what he calls the U40 worker. And his presentation is literally titled, Middle-Aged U40 Workers Are the Backbone, Brain, and Muscle of AI in the Future Enterprise.
Which is such a bold title.
It really is. And just to be completely clear for you listening, when we say U40 in this context, we are talking about those seasoned professionals right around the 40-year mark. We mean people who have spent a solid 15 to 20 years in the trenches, building their careers well before AI became, a daily coworker.
Yeah, the people who know how things used to run.
Exactly. Our mission today is to explore why these middle-aged professionals aren't just surviving the AI wave, but are actually positioned to lead it.
Which requires a completely new way of looking at corporate structure. I mean, we are moving away from the idea of replacement, where a machine just takes a human's job, and we're moving toward this incredibly powerful, multi-generational trio.
But let's stay in that chaotic boardroom for a second, because the panic is real. And honestly, I look at the capabilities of younger tech-savvy workers, and, well, I get the panic.
Oh, sure. The speed is intimidating.
Right. If a 23-year-old can automate a week's worth of workflows in a single afternoon using AI, I mean, speed absolutely matters. In a hyper-competitive market, isn't the company that prioritizes raw speed just going to absolutely crush the company prioritizing experience? Like, if you aren't fast right now, aren't you just dead?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we see the fatal flaw in prioritizing pure, unchecked speed.
Okay.
The core paradigm we need to understand here is that AI is undeniably powerful, but it is powerful strictly with data and computation. And you are right about the younger workforce. I mean, Gen Z is absolutely unmatched in their speed, their flexibility, and their native technological adaptability.
They can spin up a solution in hours.
Exactly. But what the U40 worker brings to the table is something that acts as the necessary counterweight to that velocity. They possess depth.
Depth is a counterweight to speed. I hear that, but how does that actually play out? Because, depth can sometimes just be a polite corporate buzzword for moving slowly.
It's not about moving slowly, it's about moving correctly.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, without a human who has deep experiential knowledge to guide the data and manage that incredible speed, the enterprise doesn't win the race. It just drives itself off a cliff.
So like a real-world example.
Think of a massive supply chain company. A young engineering team using cutting-edge AI might find a way to optimize truck routing that saves the company, let's say, 15% on fuel.
Which is huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
The AI processes millions of data points, the Gen Z team deploys the new routing software over the weekend, and it's incredibly fast.
And on Monday morning, I'm guessing operations grind to an absolute halt.
Complete paralysis. Because the AI optimization didn't know that the loading dock at their biggest client's warehouse is uniquely narrow.
Right.
Yeah, it requires a specific angle of approach that takes 20 extra minutes, and literally only the senior drivers know how to do it. The AI didn't account for those manual workarounds, so the Gen Z deployment was blindingly fast, and the AI tool was computationally perfect, but it just completely lacked the U40 understanding of the actual messy human workflow.
So the speed is essentially useless if the foundation of the business can't handle the velocity.
Precisely.
I mean, I want you to think about your own workplace for a second. How many times have you seen a flashy new software rollout completely fail because nobody at the pub understood how the job was actually done on the ground floor.
It happens constantly. And this is exactly why the seasoned professional is irreplaceable. They hold the invisible architecture of the company in their heads.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The source material introduces this concept of the U40 worker as the living memory of the enterprise. They are this hidden knowledge repository.
Living memory is arguably the most vital asset a legacy company has. I mean, it encompasses all the invisible, undocumented realities that keep the machinery functioning.
The stuff not in the employee handbook.
Exactly. It's the corporate culture, the unwritten rules, the historical context of, why things are done a certain way.
It makes me think of a corporate enterprise like a massive, complex, historic house.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, so you bring in AI and Gen Z, and they are like these superhuman contractors. They can repaint the walls overnight. They can upgrade all the electrical wiring to smart tech in the blink of an eye, and they do it faster and cheaper than anyone else in history.
Right.
But the U40 worker is the original architect. They are the only ones who know which walls are load-bearing. If you let the fast contractors just start knocking down walls to create a cool, open floor plan, you collapse the entire roof.
Because they don't know the structural integrity.
Exactly. The seasoned worker knows exactly where the plumbing leaks when it rains heavily, even if the blueprint says the pipes are totally fine.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. You cannot renovate the structure if you do not understand the load-bearing realities. And the source material actually categorizes this depth into a few specific pillars.
Okay, what are they?
First, as you just mentioned, they deeply understand the system. A U40 worker knows the actual workflow bottlenecks, not just the ones mapped out on a digital flowchart. They know where the enterprise is currently hurting because they've felt those pain points personally.
But I have to push back a little here.
Sure.
Isn't living memory sometimes just a nice way of saying stuck in the past?
Mm-hmm.
If we rely too much on people who just remember how things used to be done, don't we risk stifling innovation?
That is the exact tension companies have to manage. But the second pillar of this depth explains why it's not just nostalgia, it's about intangible assets.
Intangible meaning what, exactly?
We are talking about years of built trust with vendors, industry reputation, and deep emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Let's look at client acquisition for a second. AI can draft a flawless, legally binding contract in 4 seconds. A young executive can iterate the terms on the fly during a negotiation, but when you are sitting in a high-stakes meeting, AI absolutely cannot read the room.
Right. AI can process the data of the contract, but it can't look at the client's body language and realize they are hesitating.
And more importantly, the AI can't know why they are hesitating.
That's a huge point.
Yeah. The U40 executive sitting in that room knows that this particular client just went through a brutal leadership change 2 years ago, and they are terrified of committing to long-term operational shifts. The AI pushes for the mathematical optimization.
Which makes sense on paper.
Right. And the Gen Z worker pushes for the technological integration. But the U40 worker leans across the table, closes the laptop, and speaks directly to the client's underlying fear, securing the deal through human empathy.
That invisible knowledge, the DNA of the organization, the internal secrets, the lessons learned from expensive past failures, you just can't document that fully. You cannot type intuition into a spreadsheet and feed it to a large language model.
No, you really can't.
That living memory has to be embodied in a person.
Which brings us to the operational reality. That living memory is incredible for maintaining daily momentum, but where it truly becomes a matter of corporate survival is when things break. And in business, things inevitably break.
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Because AI doesn't panic when a crisis hits, but it also doesn't understand context. If a market crashes or a global supply chain completely freezes, the algorithm just keeps crunching whatever numbers you feed it.
What's fascinating here is that the research highlights a very blunt reality about artificial intelligence. It is frequently wrong.
Yeah, it hallucinates.
Exactly. Yeah. It makes aggressive errors based on flawed or incomplete training data. If you blindly trust the machine, your company is incredibly vulnerable.
I'm struggling with that a bit, though.
How so?
Well, if an AI is processing 1 million data points a second and cross-referencing global market trends instantly, how does a human's gut feeling or professional intuition even compete? Isn't human intuition just, like, flawed emotional data? Why should we trust a 40-year-old manager's gut over a supercomputer?
Because human intuition in a professional setting isn't just emotion, it is contextual filtering.
Contextual filtering?
Think of it this way. The AI is like a high-frequency trading algorithm. The Gen Z employee is the day trader deploying it. They can execute 1,000 trades a minute based on micro fluctuations in the market. But the U40 worker is the macroeconomist looking out the window, realizing there is a global pandemic starting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the algorithm only knows the math of the moment. The U40 knows the context of the world.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. The algorithm is technically correct based on its limited input, but contextually disastrous.
Exactly. To successfully implement AI, you need someone with deep practical skills to audit its output continuously. You need someone who knows the weird system exceptions that aren't written in any manual. Let's say an AI marketing tool suggests launching a massive, aggressive ad campaign because the digital metrics indicate a temporary dip in a competitor's ad spend. The AI says, strike now.
And the younger worker says, the data is clear, let's deploy.
But the seasoned U40 marketing director looks at the AI's proposed campaign and immediately senses a problem. They realize that the AI's generated messaging perfectly mimics a disastrous tone-deaf campaign that a different competitor ran back in 2014.
A completely unquantifiable memory.
Right, something that isn't easily found in recent digital analytics, but that the director remembers vividly because they were working in the industry when it tanked. The U40 worker audits the AI, catches the hallucination, and saves the company millions of dollars in brand damage.
So the AI might be the engine driving the car at 100 miles an hour, but the U40 worker is the one who knows the brakes are squeaky and there's a cliff up ahead.
That is a perfect analogy. They possess professional intuition. They can look at an output and immediately sense that recommendation is going to alienate our oldest client demographic. So they are essentially the safety net for the automation.
They are the safety net, the auditors, and ultimately the teachers. Because the Gen Z workers, they might lack that practical experience or customer insight, right?
Exactly. The source notes that U40 workers are uniquely positioned to actually train the AI and set the operational boundaries because they understand what good looks like in the real world, not just in a vacuum. And they also transmit professional ethics and responsibility to the younger generation.
Okay, so we have proven the irreplaceable value of this depth. We have the living memory, the contextual filtering, the crisis management. But the goal of this deep dive isn't to pit generations against each other, is it? It's not to say seasoned workers are inherently better than young workers, or that humans are better than AI.
No, not at all. The entire premise is synthesis. It is about how all three elements must combine to form the future enterprise.
Which brings us back to that chaotic boardroom we started with. We're actively seeing a new model emerge to replace that chaos. The research presents a blueprint for this.
Yeah, a really striking visual from the slides.
Exactly. Picture a new boardroom. You have a silver-haired 40-something worker standing calmly at the head of the table. They aren't sitting on the sidelines holding on to the past. They're actively guiding, auditing, and mentoring a team of young, tattooed Gen Z workers. And together, they're manipulating several AI robots in real time.
It is a profound shift from friction to harmony.
This raises an important question. How do you actually structure this in a real business day-to-day? How do these three forces interact without stepping all over each other?
The author details what we can call the future trio. It is a specific, intentional division of labor for the AI-first enterprise model, and it requires immense discipline to execute.
Walk us through a daily workflow with this trio. Let's say a company is launching a new flagship product. How does this ecosystem function?
First, you have the AI layer. The AI provides the raw computing power, the massive data processing, and the automated generation. In your product launch scenario, the AI analyzes global consumer trends, competitor pricing, and historical sales data to generate 50 different variations of market positioning and pricing models in a matter of seconds.
So the heavy lifting of raw creation and analysis is entirely offloaded to the machine.
Precisely. Second, you have the Gen Z layer. They provide the flexibility, the rapid implementation, and the seamless technological adaptation.
They are the agile operators.
Yes, they take those 50 variations, use secondary AI tools to rapidly A/B test them across digital platforms, build the landing pages, and synthesize the real-time engagement data into a digestible dashboard. They execute the technical mechanics flawlessly and instantly.
And then comes the third layer.
The U40 layer. They provide the system stability, the risk management, and the overarching leadership. They sit down with the Gen Z operators, review the final 3 high-performing models, and apply that invisible architecture we talked about.
Right, the living memory.
Exactly. They realize that Model A, while mathematically the most profitable, relies on a supply chain partner that is historically unreliable during the winter months. They realize Model B pushes a marketing angle that conflicts with the company's core ethical guidelines. So they select Model C, guide the younger team on how to tweak the messaging for key legacy clients, and approve the launch.
AI for speed and generation. Gen Z for flexibility and implementation. U40 for stability and contextual direction. So what does this all mean? It means the companies that win won't be the ones that replace humans with AI. The winners will be the ones that master this exact cross-generational collaboration. And it's worth noting, for anyone looking to actually build this model, the author, THS Tuan Anh, even offers one-on-one consulting and training on this exact framework.
It is a complete paradigm shift from replacement to integration. Companies are realizing that if they only hire young tech talent and buy expensive AI, they become incredibly fast, but incredibly fragile.
Fast, but fragile. I love that phrasing. So as you think about your own career trajectory, or if you are looking at the structure of your own company, remember this. The seasoned U40 professional is not being pushed out by artificial intelligence. Far from it.
Their true value is only becoming more apparent as the technology gets faster. Their intuition, their scars from past failures, their deep, long-standing relationships, their ability to read a room, these are the things you simply cannot code into an algorithm.
They are the load-bearing walls. They are the undeniable backbone, the brain, and the muscle of the future business landscape. They ensure that the speed of the machine doesn't destroy the ecosystem of the enterprise.
But as we look at this transition and as we rely on this future trio, I want to leave you with a lingering question, something to ponder long after you finish listening today.
Let's hear it.
We have established that the living memory and the deep professional intuition of today's seasoned workers are uniquely human traits. They were forged over decades of traditional work, trial and error, and navigating complex human relationships entirely without algorithms.
Right, they earned those scars the hard way.
But think about this. In 20 or 30 years, when today's Gen Z workforce inevitably ages up and becomes the new seasoned U40 generation, what will their living memory look like?
Oh, wow.
Considering they will have spent their entire professional lives co-working alongside AI from day one, from their very first entry-level task, will human intuition itself fundamentally change? What does experience actually look like when your primary intellectual coworker has always been a machine?
That completely flips the premise of everything we just discussed. If your living memory is built alongside an algorithm from the very beginning, your professional intuition isn't entirely human anymore. It's some kind of, hybrid intuition. We started with that image of a Gen Z worker arguing with an AI robot in a boardroom. And maybe the reality is that the argument is just the messy beginning of a completely new kind of human cognition.
It's definitely something to think about.
That is an incredibly profound thought to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep looking for the load-bearing walls in your own workplace, and we will catch you next time.